All right, welcome to day 4 as we continue our circle tour of Lake Superior. Actually getting into the circle tour part, or a little closer to it today. Today we're going to spend the day in the eastern tip of the UP. We are working our way up to, I'm going to try and pronounce this correctly because I looked it up, Tahquamenon Falls. There's an upper and lower falls, and if the timing is right, brew pub we'll check out there. Then we're going to go to Whitefish Point, the Great Lakes Shipwreck Museum. That should be pretty cool. Some of the history of the Edmund Fitzgerald, and that's something that's we've sort of followed since we were kids. Probably in large part due to Gordon Lightfoot, his famous song. From there, we'll work our way over to the Soo Locks with probably a stop at the Point Iroquois Lighthouse. And all in all, looking for an interesting day of stops and ending our day in Sault Ste. Marie, heading into Canada tomorrow. So come on along for the ride. So the view straight ahead is what a lot of driving through the UP is like. Between the interesting bits, there's a lot of straight tree-lined roads. Certainly, as I recall cutting across the UP, that's not exactly fair because there's some pretty awesome parts of the UP, but there's definitely a lot of grinding your way down a straight road through the tree sections as well. So I did a little digging last night on this whole Mackinac versus Mackinac thing that I was babbling about yesterday and got a little more educated. So the term actually comes from an Ojibwe term, which is a longer term that ends in Mackinac and is named Big Turtle, basically, or stands for Big Turtle, which was the shape of Mackinac Island. Then the French came along and they shortened it up to what looks like Mackinac, but the C at the end is silent in French pronunciation, so it's Mackinac. So when the English-speaking folks came along, they just kept the pronunciation of Mackinac, and actually for like Mackinac City, changed the spelling. But some of the areas like the bridge, the straits, and the island, still spelled with the C at the end, but you'll find that the locals up here pronounce everything Mackinac. So there you go. In case you were wondering, that's the Mackinac versus Mackinac thing, and I was totally wrong on the Mackinac thing. Just Mackinac. Keep it simple. Beautiful mouth of the river. I'm guessing this is the Tahquamenon. I just can't do that one. I can't do it. The falls, which furthermore shall be referred to as the falls, where it dumps into Lake Superior. We headed back west Paradise, and we're about 8 miles from the falls right now. And we'll get to the falls and we'll show you around. Beautiful little up north lakes here, both sides of the road. So we're getting closer to the entrance to the falls. All right, so here we are at the lower falls. Let's go check it out. So this is the two pieces of the lower falls. We'll get a little closer to it. Over to the right here's another viewing platform. A nice look at the lower falls. A little bit of mist here. This is kind of a crazy nice bridge. All aluminum. Makes me wonder how they got this back in here. It's a trail all the way along the river for 5 miles to the upper falls. This is the other portion of the lower falls. Cool views over here. You can really see the layers in the limestone here. The further downstream you go, the older the limestone is. And this is from, looks like the tail end of the Paleozoic era, so long time ago. So we made it into the Tahquamenon Falls restaurant. I think I'm getting closer on the pronunciation. We're just going to call it the Falls, we decided.
Yeah, at the brewery in here, and it's pretty cool. It's a cool taxidermy, and pictures. Some of the pictures on the wall are amazing, as you noticed. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I'll take that one and that one. It would fit nicely in our home.
Well, a beer sounds pretty good. We got a lot of riding today. So let's go with Diet Pepsi
Diet
and
Pepsi.
have a beer at the end of the day. So yeah, looking forward to checking out the Upper Falls after we're done with our lunch. All right, so mystery solved. Tahquamenon rhymes with phenomenon. That's what the sign said here. There's the Upper Falls down there. Today's flow rate, 3,180 gallons per second. That's a lot of water coming over there. Let's go check out the viewpoint at the brink.
All right, that was fun, but it's getting hot and very crowded. Big line of cars waiting to get in there. So we had our timing right. But man, does it feel good to get back on the bike and get some airflow. We've got about a 30-minute ride or so up to Whitefish Point and the Great Lakes Shipwreck Museum. And we're hoping it's cooler by the lake. It's a good look at Lake Superior as we work our way up to Whitefish Point.
This is the bell raised up from the Edmund Fitzgerald in, let's see, July 4th, 1995. Well, here's a dive apparatus. Hand pump, pump air, coil of hose, and a dive suit. No thanks. This was some of the timbers recovered from a ship that sank called the Independence. Nice exhibit. So this area behind us is known as the graveyard of the Great Lakes. While over 550 ships have sunk on Lake Superior, about 300 of them have been in this 80-mile stretch between Whitefish Point and Munising, or the Pictured Rocks area. Partly in combination to the lake narrowing down in this area. In the early years, there were a lot of collisions here, the fog, the snow, and then the fact that there's about a 200-mile stretch of fetch, open water for the wind and waves to pick up for storms out of the northwest have made this a very treacherous area and home to about 300 shipwrecks, including the Edmund Fitzgerald that sunk 17 miles offshore here. Pretty sombering story. But kind of a neat place to visit and a very well done museum. What'd you think?
Educational. I think we've all heard about it. You hear the song. They just have some facts in here that were interesting to see. The actual bell that came off the Edmund Fitzgerald.
Yeah, very nicely done video with that. So, all right, on down the road we go. One more lighthouse and into Sault Ste. Marie for the day. As it turns out, we're stalling here a little bit because there's a line of storms that have formed right along our route, and we're waiting for those to blow out of there so we can head on in for the night.
All right, we finished up at the Great Lakes Shipwreck Museum. It was very well, very tastefully done. It's kind of sobering in many ways to think about the number of shipwrecks that have occurred on the Great Lakes in general, but just this 80-mile stretch of Lake Superior from Munising, Pictured Rocks down to Whitefish Point has been 300 shipwrecks. Anyway, we're back on the road and going to work our way down off the point and over to Sault Ste. Marie for the night. Chasing a line of storms that had developed ahead of us out of here. Hopefully taking our time and pausing if we need to let them blow out. But, you know, if we're going to do that, I don't see a point in putting on rain gear if we can pause for a few minutes and wait for them to go away. So they were kind of lingering along that south shore of Lake Superior just to the west of Sault Ste. Marie. So we'll see what happens as we go here. We do have one more lighthouse to stop at and maybe a couple scenic turnouts between here and there. One lighthouse of interest is the Point Iroquois Lighthouse. Pretty little section here where river dumps down into Lake Superior. It's the Tahquamenon River. I think I'm finally getting the pronunciation down. We're now entering the Whitefish Bay Scenic Byway. Take us along the south edge of Lake Superior. Scenic byway is turning out to be a good cruiser of a road. Our strategy to delay departing up at Whitefish Point a little bit with this rain drop to the south turned out to be effective. All that's left behind here is a little bit of wet pavement. Evidence that it did rain here a little bit ago. Anyway, a beautiful road just kind of winds into us big sweepers through here. And some views of the lake every once in a while.
This is the Point Iroquois Lighthouse. Right off the highway, easy to stop and check out. Here's another view of the lighthouse from the front side. There's an outbound ship heading out into Lake Superior, coming out of the Soo Locks a minute ago. Nice view of the lighthouse in the backdrop behind us. All right, we made it down into downtown Sault Ste. Marie. We're about to grab some dinner here. So. Tomorrow, what's on tap for tomorrow? We are heading into Canada. Our destination tomorrow is Wawa, Canada, and some beautiful shoreline along the way. I think we will start the day exploring the Soo Locks and a little bit of the area. Downtown Sault Ste. Marie, and eventually we'll cross the border and head up to Wawa. Some waterfalls, some scenic overlooks of the lake, and whatever else we find. So come on along for the ride tomorrow. Hope you're enjoying the episodes on this trip, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching. So this is the Lee A. Tregurtha, just coming out of the lock. Heading down lake. Down here tomorrow morning and see what else we can get. But so we finished up dinner. We just happened to run across this guy popping out of the lock. So